The next discussion we'll have this week as we provide the introduction into or an overview of beef cattle production here in the United States. I think we'll have a little bit of a discussion on global beef production. We're really into a scenario of we think about global beef supply and the impact of other countries on U.S. markets, as well as how we can take advantage here in the U.S. of markets around the world. And so if we look at global beef production, we always hear a lot about our biggest competitor is Brazil. And Brazil is certainly a big competitor, and they export a lot of product around the world. Here in the United States, we have we produce over 12.2 million metric tons, and a metric ton is approximately 1.1 tons of a commodity. So the U.S., we produce about 12.2 million metric tons in 2023. That's a little over 20% of the worldwide beef production. And we did it in 2023 with about 89.25 million head of beef cattle. As we look at some of these other countries and compare us to, let's just say, Brazil produces 10.5 million metric tons, or about 18% of the world global beef supply, but they do it with almost 200 million head of cattle. And so it really is just that particular figure is a true testament of the system of beef production that we have here in the United States and just the overall efficiency of it. We are a very specialized system. We've got a great infrastructure all the way down to the farm to market roads up to the feed yards to packing plants. We have a very unique system of cattle production here in the United States. If you look at other factors that show why we produce so many more pounds of beef per head of cattle, we look at carcass weights. We produce heavier cattle. Our feeding industry is certainly one that we put cattle in the feedlot. But you also have to look at other factors and just the efficiency of production, from forage utilization to grain utilization, all the way down to reproductive efficiency. And if you can really tweak those factors and improve that efficiency, you're producing, each cow is producing one calf per year, and a majority of them are doing that. You can see how that really improves the efficiency of that particular country's beef cattle system. Do we have room for improvement here in the United States? Absolutely. We continue, and that's what the land grant university does, is like Texas A&M. We're in the business of trying to improve the efficiency, whether it be reproductive efficiency, feed conversion, forage utilization, or just overall sustainability of the beef enterprise. Those are things that types of research that go on here at Texas A&M University and other universities focusing on beef cattle production here in the U.S. So again, this slide just kind of really shows how we have begun producing more beef with less cattle. And you can see the inventory peaked in the 70s here in the United States. But we've been on a slow decline since then. And currently we're at some of the lowest cattle numbers dating back to the 1950s. But if you look at our beef production, it's pretty remarkable if you can see that with less cattle, we're producing more beef product than ever. And so again, that's a testament to the efficiency of the beef cattle industry here in the United States. Beef production per cow, if you look at pounds of carcass weight, again, you go back to roughly 200 pounds of carcass weight in 1950 to now we get to the 2020s, and we're looking at over 700 pounds of carcass weight produced per cow. Again, yes, we have increased the size of our cattle that we're producing, but we've also improved the fertility as well as the other efficiencies of production as well. Again, carcass weights, they have continued to rise. If you look at cold carcass weights here in 2000, right now we're sitting at just about a little over 100 pounds heavier carcass weights compared to just 24 years ago. So again, feeding cattle a little longer to heavier weights to improve the efficiency of the operations. Again, you can see carcass weights this year, if we look at them, 2024, we're about 26 pounds heavier carcass weights than we were looking at 2023. Some of the factors associated with that is that live cattle, finished cattle, are selling for anywhere from $1.90 to $2 a pound. And those that are feeding those cattle out, if they can do it for less than that $2 a pound, there's money to be made in that. So they are feeding them heavier, feeding them longer. And again, I think it's just a market-driven scenario here when we think about cattle production. Beef demand certainly is extremely strong at this point in time. I will say, and we'll show you this next slide, that demand, the index is strong, but a lot of that has to deal with the fact that our supplies are lower. And as you can see, per capita net beef consumption from 2021 has declined. And again, if you go back and look at 13 and 14, we saw that decline, but we saw it increase. And it was really about, one, the economy, the U.S. economy, but also this was a period of time where we saw beef prices really skyrocket at the retail level. And if you bought beef lately or in a steakhouse, grocery store, you know that those prices have increased as well. And so in 2022, we gained a little bit. We put on 0.4 pounds, but you can see 2023 and 2024, we decreased about 5 pounds per U.S. consumer. And it's expected that into 26, we're going to add on or lose an additional 2 pounds. Fortunately, global demand is good, as well as coupled with lower domestic supplies, which we'll show later on in the presentation. Meat, red meat and poultry consumption, you can see when we see a drop in beef, we're going to see an increase in those cheaper protein sources. And so pork, we're expected to see an uptick in pork consumption, but poultry consumption, because it is the most economical or the cheapest protein, livestock protein source that we have, you could see that it's expected production is going to continue to ramp up there, but also consumption domestically is going to continue to increase. And the U.S. consumer is going to add another 10, 15 pounds of poultry consumption to offset their the desire of a meat animal protein at the plate because beef is expensive. So that's something we're watching. We have to be concerned with it. When you begin to lose market share and beef losing some market share to poultry, oftentimes it's hard to get that market share back in the future. And so that's something that's a little concerning if you're a beef producer and you're marketing beef. We are a global market, and global events, whether it be the Ukraine war or other conflicts around the world, as well as policies within those countries, tariffs, those types of things, any of those things can influence whether or not what happens to beef prices. And so when we think about the global beef industry, we are a global market. And we have to think about, from a global perspective, of these factors that influence that. We also have to think about opportunities, okay, and opportunities outside of the U.S. When you think about the population, about 96% of the global population is outside the United States. And the world population is growing at a much higher rate than it is here in the United States. And so as we approach that 11 billion people mark, we're going to see some opportunities in your future. If you're interested in being involved in the beef industry or agriculture, there are going to be more people to feed. And so as you can see, we're expected as far as meat consumption, a dramatic increase as we move into 2030, 40, and 50. So there's going to be opportunities for increased beef production, but also increased beef marketing as well. Again, this is coming from as these countries begin to develop and countries that the people within those countries have more disposable income. We know that there is a linear relationship between per capita income as we compare it to per capita consumption of meat in those particular countries. And so again, we're seeing an increased demand for beef outside the U.S. as well as poultry and pork as well. And so there's going to be some opportunities as we continue to expand our global market there. Again, we need to see a growth of beef produced as well as pork, sheep, veal, and poultry as well. If we look at U.S. beef and pork and poultry exports, poultry, we expect in the coming years, because we are increasing and producing more poultry, to see that increase. We do expect to see, as far as beef side of things, that for that line to be flatlined. And as you can see, if we look at beef exports here from the United States, we look at May numbers of 2024, you can see we're behind. And in May of 23, we were down about 3%. Year to date, we're down almost 5% on as far as our exports there. And again, the big reason for that goes back to beef prices, the value of the dollar. But the beef prices are one of those things that we're seeing that other countries are a little more price competitive, or those people within those countries are buying less higher end cuts, which is what we hang our hats on here in the United States. You can see who our big five importers of beef from the United States are. Mexico is the biggest, as well as you could see Japan is a big player, especially in higher end cuts, but also tongue and intestine, those types of things. South Korea has been another big player in the last 10 years. Canada, China, we saw a big run up going into 2020, and we saw that decline. Some of that's COVID related. But we opened up the China market in about 2018, and it rose exponentially, but it's softened some with that. Fortunately, we've seen some other countries take up some of the slack with that. Again, we don't just export ribeyes, steaks. We export lots of other variety meats as well as cuts that we don't utilize as much here in the United States. Things like livers. Probably not very many of you guys in this class that eat liver, and usually it's about 1% of my students, if I poll them, the in-person class, actually eat liver now, and so we have to do something with those livers rather than just render them in some other product. We can create value by exporting them into Egypt. And Egypt is our biggest importer of U.S. livers, and it adds value to them. Beef tongue, we export a lot of beef tongue to Japan. And this would have been in about 2018, that value was $245 million. Beef intestine in 2018 was $43 million value. So these products that we don't consume regularly here in the United States, there's opportunities to increase the value of our animals by increasing the marketability of them. Also underutilized cuts, as well as some of our rounds and different things. They can be featured in some of our different products. This was a beef yakiniku, which is a thinly sliced product that is cooked in a wok. And in Costco in Japan, it was the number one selling product. And when I was there a few years ago, and so there's some opportunities there. Top 10 countries shipping beef products to the U.S. And you can see there, Brazil's a big exporter of beef to us. Canada is, Mexico. You'll notice that Brazil has jumped up a bunch as far as the amount that they're exporting to us. And again, the reason for that is higher beef prices, the demand that we have here domestically for ground beef in countries like Brazil and Australia and New Zealand. They can send us their leaner beef, and we can mix it with our fat trimmings to get that ground beef that we enjoy here in the United States. So we are seeing the export market really is lower. And again, that's because of beef prices. But we could see that our imports have increased because of the lack of lean supply here in the United States. And that concludes the discussion on our export markets. We'll move on to domestic production.